Indulgences! Get your indulgences! Indulgences for sale!
Hey, buddy, you got any, something to take the sin away, so to speak?
I think I can help you out, man. But you gotta be a little more specific. What are we talking about here? Murder?
Oh, no.
Adultery?
No. Well,
Looking at some sexy woodcuts?
maybe I was, looking at some sexy woodcuts.
I knew it!
Shh, man, come on. What do you got?
Well, let's take a look at this. If you pledge at $5 a month on patreon.com/boysbiblestudy, you should be good.
Oof, that's not so bad.
Yeah. And you get the entire back catalog of bonus episodes and 2 new ones every month.
Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
Anytime. Next.
Hey, I'm looking for an indulgence.
Well, you're in the right place, pal. What'll it be?
Yeah, I pirated the Metallica album Master of Puppets on Napster.
Whew. You're going to need something pretty strong for that. How about you join the $20 tier on the Boys Bible Study Patreon? All your sins are forgiven, and you get a shout out in every episode. For instance, Nicole, Marissa, Russell, and Jeff.
Oh, wow, sounds good to me. Pleasure doing business with you.
Anytime. Sometimes even the godliest man among us needs to indulge.
The answer to your dilemma rests in here.
You're saying I'm supposed to watch this movie?
I'm saying you're supposed to live this movie.
Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. It's us, your favorite boys, back at it again. As always, I'm Ash. My co-hosts are
Scott.
And Julian.
And today our very special guest, filmmaker and David A.R. White aficionado, Christian film expert in his own right, Anthony Banua-Simon. Hey there, Anthony.
Hey.
Hi. So nice to finally have you on. We've been fans of your documentary Pure Flix and Chill for a while. And basically, since the show started, we knew we wanted to talk to you. And today we're going to start watching for a couple weeks films of David A.R. White, who you've done a documentary about. I was hoping you could talk about Pure Flix and Chill and also, you know, why you chose to do a documentary of this subject.
Yeah. So it kind of started in a roundabout way. Like a good friend of mine, we would watch movies that we thought just piqued our interest, that we felt were off or just kind of off the beaten path, wasn't quite hitting the mark. Not to say the mark is good, just
Right.
Something's going on. And we started watching Pure Flix films on Netflix. This is pre-pureflix.com. And we just would find whatever was interesting. And then we kept seeing films of David A.R. White. And then the more we watched, the more we saw other actors we recognized. And then we got to learn more about who was directing and, you know, all the different roles he would take on. And it created more and more of this kind of alternate stable of actors and producers and directors. And we were like fascinated with him. And so we watched as much as we could. And then we kept seeing these common themes in all the films and was blowing our mind that he would take on these different roles, basically kind of a wish fulfillment of whatever he wanted to do. And I just started putting together the Pure Flix and Chill, this compilation film that covers about 30 years of his professional span as an actor, director, and founder of Pure Flix. And I think it kind of coincided with, I was finishing a feature documentary about my extended family on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. And I was looking at their relationship to Hawaii and the labor history and union organization, and looking at the Native Hawaiian sovereignty movement, but also looking at all the Hollywood films that were filmed on the island in parallel. So I was working with how like Hollywood films were used to push different ideologies and the interest of U.S. statehood, U.S. military. Also, the sugar companies that were the dominant industry at the time had partnered with Hollywood productions. So it was basically looking at like how these films were used to push different ideas and looking at films in that way. And I thought a really interesting way of looking at mainstream Hollywood is this other group that has political power, but has not won the culture war of Christian cinema, and looking at how ideology is played out in mainstream films, how it's played out in Christian films, and it kind of helps look at the kind of the mechanisms behind large blockbusters.
Yeah, honestly, like parts of what you were saying are super similar to like why Scott Julian and I got interested in Christian film and ended up starting this podcast. And I think what you touched on about like how regardless of like ideology promoted, it's really interesting to see if a film can like hide its propaganda behind a veil. Like, I don't know. It's like I'm not even interested in whether I agree or not with the ideology of a film. I just find it compelling to see propaganda in action.
I think it's like the most interesting way to think about these things is from another complete group with different values and how they're representing that in film. And it kind of draws attention to things that we might take for granted and things that might be more polished or streamlined or well financed in kind of mainstream liberal cinema. So, yeah.
Yeah. But probably a lot of people who listen to Boys Bible Study already know, but just in case they don't, Anthony or for any of us can answer this, but what is PURE FLIX and why is it important to the Christian film landscape?
Yeah, so PURE FLIX is a production company that David A.R. White co-founded. You know, their mission was to really overcome what they thought were different trappings or misfirings or limitations of Christian films. And what came out of that was the actual streaming service, pureflix.com, which functions like Netflix, but all of the channel are films that, you know, are either PureFlix productions or acquired by PureFlix that are faith-based productions. So it's like feature films, TV shows, documentaries, educational programming. They're really trying to push their educational programming during COVID because they want it to be like teaching aids. So that's something that they're going for. But it's very much spearheaded by David A.R. White, taking on all these different genres that are like the equivalents of, you know, secular entertainment.
And taking on all these different roles too. I mean, he writes, directs, stars in, obviously, all the time. I think too, something important that you brought up is the self-containment aspect, because I do think that David A.R. White's trying to do both, where a movie can stand alone and somebody could not be a Christian and still come in and enjoy it, which I totally think you could with the movie we just watched, Me Again. But also, obviously, if you have Pure Flix, that is self-contained in its own way too.
Yeah, an interesting example of that is the Revelation Road films. These post-apocalyptic films, you know, basically these films are like Christian Mad Max. But apparently, I've heard the thing that appears at the end is this. It basically goes from a post-apocalyptic road movie, Road Warrior, into being left behind tribulation arena. But apparently they have an alternate version where it's this kind of diffuse alien force that arrives. They basically took the Christian element out of it, and then they repackaged it for like European audiences.
What?
Yeah, I'll have to look up where I read that, but that was an interesting example to me.
David A.R. White released the Euro cut of Revelation Road. We
I
are
can't find
begging
it,
you.
yeah.
I am begging you to make like to either to direct a trance video by some like Swedish artist, or release the European cut of Revelation Road. For the love of God, Mr. White, please. Yeah, David A.R. White has like definitely been a compelling figure for us, obviously. He just, as you said, he just pops up so much. If you follow the genre at all, he's one of the major players. Obviously some others, just as examples, Kevin Sorbo, Kirk Cameron, people like that. But what's David A.R. White's vibe? Like, what's his brands? Like, what sort of characterizes him in films, or like sets him apart from the other major players?
I think, what did he say he was like? And this is so strange, especially if you look at like representation in media and how Christians see themselves as like not represented. Right. Is he said he called himself, someone either called him or he took ownership after someone called him that he approved of that he was the Tyler Perry of Christian cinema.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. I buy that.
Yeah, I definitely saw, I think his trajectory is so similar, and it's not that hard to suss out if you watch interviews with the Pure Flix producers, writers. They had this, even Bruce Marciano.
King.
Yeah. Even though he got snubbed on the your guys' year list. It's, next year.
Work harder, Bruce.
It's political. It's all politics.
Yeah. They had this, they didn't hack it in secular, whatever, industry in Hollywood. And God was the agent that swooped in and told him, this is what you should do. And I think David definitely ran with that, where he just got to do whatever he wanted to do in this new realm. And I think that makes him controversial because of it, where people will say, he's saying, we're evangelizing by doing this media. But some people that are Christian are saying, no, he's not doing it right. Or, this isn't working. But I don't know. Is that envy? Is that a sin? I don't know. Like, is that, do they really feel that way? I mean, it's funny. There are, after doing this film, I was diving deeper into other Christian film producer or directors that are more hardcore and are serious about this as being, taking themselves very serious, that this is an effective tool that shouldn't be taken lightly, kind of thing. Can
you give an example?
Yeah. I don't know if you heard of Frank Schaeffer, but he's kind of like the John Carpenter, I'd say, of Christian cinema, where he...
What?
Yeah, like he makes
come
these...
again?
Yeah. And he makes these like kind of harsh, like future war 80s films or cop dramas that are it's really buried deep what he's going for. And he's something else, and he's very intense gentleman.
Wow, I thank you for this. I'm looking at his filmography right now. Yeah, he seems super cool. God bless Frank Schaeffer. Yeah, but there's something about. So obviously, the level that we all appreciate these films on is like again, sincere, but we're looking them as like, we're analyzing them like as storytelling devices, rather than, considering ourselves necessarily like in the audience for their ideology. However, I mean, so, maybe I'm not the best like observer to say this, but I could see there being a benefit to David A.R. White's like softer approach. Like, we watched Me Again. That's the film that, of all of the David A.R. White catalog, we decided to watch this one with you because we heard you liked it. But this film like is like funny. Like, there were parts of it that were like insane, but I was like, this film is cute. Like, if it came on the Hallmark Channel or whatever, it's explicitly Christian, but it's not like alien,
Right.
Yeah, it seems first and foremost like a fun body swap movie.
I felt like it was the most secular, and even at times like leaning towards Eastern philosophy than any of the other Pure Flix movies.
This is kind of an interesting time in his like Pure Flix like spread of films, because I think this is like not as goofy as the one where him coming to town, his Mennonite story.
Mm-hmm.
Holy Man Undercover. Yeah, it has a little of that goofiness, but it's not to the kind of God's not dead like level of seriousness that he kind of drifts into, and not as serious as Beckman. So it's kind of this in between that's interesting.
Yeah, it still feels like he's like finding his voice in a way, even though he does so much variety that, he's open to taking different vibes. But actually, while you mention it, it was rewatching your documentary this week that I remembered that, yeah, he actually comes from a Mennonite background, which is pretty interesting. Can you say a little bit about his early life and his like initial foray into Hollywood before he became a fully Christian actor?
Yeah, it's funny. So he grew up as a Mennonite, and I've heard this like joke that he tells probably about 20 times. It's the stock joke where he says the Mennonites make the Mormons look like a pack of Hell's Angels. And to give you context, he nails it every time. And his father was a Mennonite pastor, and I think that it really worked. I mean, the way he tells it is that he wanted to do movies, and he told his parents he wanted to do that, and they said, "Okay, as long as you're doing it for the Lord." I'm just repeating what his
Sure.
myth. I don't know, but he moved to Los Angeles, I think around 19, and tried to get into acting, TV acting. He didn't know any of the celebrities he was around because he didn't have any reference.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And then it was what was it? The show that he got on with Burt Reynolds.
Geronimo? No.
No. Yeah, that's the film that he was in. But Evening Shade. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was his first breakout, and and then he, as he says it, things weren't coming together, and he felt kind of lost, and he started doing Christian films with the Cristiano brothers, and he thought that was going to be kind of just a temporary gig. It's funny. He just was like, it was all right. Then he wants to move on. But as he says, God had other plans as his agent, and he kept doing Christian films.
Hard to argue with, because it seems like the Cristiano brothers, like he really took what they started and ran with it. It really feels like that.
We should remake The Founder, but make it the Cristiano brothers and David A.R. White instead of the guy who stole the idea to McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Cristianos are people that we love here at Boys Bible Study. They are the masterminds behind such movies as The Secrets of Jonathan Sperry, Time Changer, and an episode that I won't say it'll be the bonus episode coming out after this one is going to be a Cristiano x David A.R. White early collab. But an important film to bring up with regards to their collaboration is Second Glance, which I will spoil and say we're going to cover a little later this month. But it's just notable to mention now that was, am I correct, Scott? That was their first collaboration together?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder, what it was about this this Hollywood twink that the Cristianos were just like so captivated by. Mr. White became the muse of 1,000 Christian movies before starting his own empire. I would love to talk more about Me Again, this film that we watched today. Are there any other very important David A.R. White facts that we should mention before we do that?
I think there's a soft side that David presents, but he goes hard for certain audiences. If you book him to do kind of live, when he does more sermon like live gigs, he's pretty fire and brimstone. He can get pretty. He doesn't mince words in those scenarios.
Really, that's interesting. I didn't know he did that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he has that, and then he also has this kind of comedy tour where he just kind of tells his life experiences as a comedian, as more like a stand-up comedian, or like monologue.
David A.R. White, a one-man show.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something he did with Tommy Blaze as well.
Anthony, you're dropping so many bombs about David A.R. White on me right now. I feel like there's like so many like new
I just had to
avenues.
say it. Yeah,
I'm so glad you did. There's so many new avenues to investigate with this man.
he's a complicated man. Yeah.
He does not sleep. It's almost as like he is multiple people at the same time to pull off all these things.
Yeah, he really is a man of 1,000 faces. His he's good looking but very versatile to the point where he can play, a comedy, he can play an action hero, he can play an anti-hero. He really puts himself in everything. And this film then today that we watched with you could be a great case for him literally being a man of 1,000 faces. The film we watched today with Anthony is called Me Again. It is a 2012 David A.R. White film under the Pure Flix masthead. And it's a really fun, comedic, quirky romp through the concept of a Christian body swap movie. So we're going to get into it in full. For anyone who's listening, we encourage you watch it if you can, but if you can't, we're going to describe it in full and give our full analysis on it for you. I do want to mention before we get into it, so the writer of this film, if I'm not mistaken, is a man named Tommy Blaze. Who is he?
Blaze.
Who is he and how does he figure into the David A.R. White mythos?
Now, Tommy Blaze is, I think he started as a stand-up comedian. You can find his videos on YouTube still. I think maybe in the 80s, early 90s. And he has a born-again story, which I found out because he joined David A.R. White in this comedy career, and then turned born again. And then he started writing. He writes a lot of scripts for Pure Flix, actually. And I think Me Again might be one of the first, but he's still writing for Pure Flix. But I think he's been behind the camera strictly for at least the last couple years. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah, but he not only writes, but also co-stars in this movie.
Yeah, it's funny because he's kind of like he wrote the story and then he's kind of leading the main actor through the plot points and finding him out for the first time.
Yeah, really interesting way to literally write himself into the film. Let's start describing Me Again. Maybe Scott, would you mind starting? What brings us into this film?
Sure. Well, it starts off with David A.R. White preaching, which is not the first time that we've seen this, and I'm sure it won't be the last. He seems to make himself a pastor in many of his movies. But he starts off by saying, he's telling the movie. It's a classic narrator telling the story of the movie you're about to watch, and says he's not sure if he dreamt this or if it really happened or what.
I don't know if what happened to me was real or if it was just a dream. Not even sure that matters anymore. But I feel like I owe you all an apology. If you're going to believe any of this or even understand it, I feel like I'm going to have to start at the beginning.
And then we cut to him being a bored, shitty dad. He's lazy, he's not finishing projects, and his wife's obviously really disappointed with him. Played by Ali Landry Monteverde. This is his wife, April. And he's really frustrated. She wants to separate from him. He calls his good buddy, Tommy Blaze, who's Tony in this movie, and says, bring me over one of your classic movies. I forget exactly how he says it. But apparently Tommy/Tony has a huge movie collection. And when he's on his way over, David makes a prayer at the church. And then when he walks out of the doors, it's just like a huge swath of white light overtakes him.
I don't get what you're doing, Lord. I'm supposed to be a great man, a leader. I feel like I'm nothing. I'm ordinary. I'm miserable. Help me to be the man you want me to be. Anybody except who I am.
And then he wakes up as somebody else. And from then on, he's just swapping bodies for pretty much the whole movie.
Yeah. Just a note. I thought something was really interesting was, so, you were saying in this movie that Ali Landry Monteverdi is the actress who portrayed his wife, but there's a tradition in Christian film acting of like the stars, let's say it's a male star, which it often is in this genre, like their wife is somehow involved in the production. A lot of stars cast their own wives as their romantic interests, which I'm sure is like a guard against like being perceived as like being adulterous or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But there's an interesting circumstance with his wife in this film, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, she's also in it. She's one of the bodies that he swaps into. So I think the thinking here, because as you're obviously right, Ash, that happens a lot in these things where it's like, if they could ever possibly touch the person in anything seen beyond platonic, then like you better be in an actual relationship with them, or else it's obviously a sin. So I think why they did that for this one, and I could be wrong, but I think is because there's a point where he's like kind of grabbing himself when he's body swapped into who his real wife is. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking like that would be seen as like wildly inappropriate, possibly, unless it's his wife that he's touching.
Interesting.
Which apparently that weighted higher versus at the end when he gets back together with his movie wife, and they're obviously in love again, or supposed to be, like they don't kiss. Because like when they were going in at the end, I was like, so are they gonna just not kiss? And I was like, oh no, they don't. They just hug and are like, I love you, honey. I love you so much.
They literally don't.
I think this is the only film with David A.R. White that he's not married to Andrea, who's his real wife in the film.
Yeah, could be. Who, sadly, as we were talking about earlier, they got separate. They officially, publicly separated this past fall.
Yeah, I mean, he's had the dysfunctional marriage plot, I think, in like 5 different films, and even if it's not him starring, there's it's called The Oath, which is another man in a like dysfunctional marriage. And then he's like an actor in The Oath that's telling the man he has to step up or something. So
really,
it's on his mind a lot. Marriage Retreat. That's the main plot point between him and Andrea. The Oath. And then, Brother White, there's some tension as well. Yes, Andrea is also his wife.
It seemed like going back to Pure Flix and Chill real quick, watching it this time, it really seemed like he is kind of like mirroring things that go on in his own life to a large extent, which I think a lot of great filmmakers do that on some level. But it is curious you bringing that up about how many times he's like creating or recreating a situation where they're not getting along, but then figure it out. And, it's easier to write that into a movie that you figure it out than it is in real life.
Yeah. And it's always, I mean, and part of the tension is always kind of his ambition. And, I've heard of people that worked with him that he's, super ambitious guy. Getting the Holy Man Undercover was a huge feat. And it was very like him pulling off a lot of things at once. So, I think that it was on his mind. It's also it's not The Encounter. It's Blink of an Eye is also a film by, with David and Andrea in a marriage with that same tension.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's back in 2009. So this is like a long time coming. That's interesting you said that about Holy Man Undercover real quick too, that one was so ambitious, because if you're even just looking on IMDb, like from Holy Man Undercover on, he's just like nonstop go, making stuff so much. That must have really like helped motivate him and like encourage him and give him confidence to really go for it every time.
Yeah. So I got this really interesting behind this. I'll have to send you the link, but there's a writer who writes a lot for Pure Flix, who kind of gives this like the real dirt of the behind the scenes of all these films.
Wow.
It's really fascinating. He's kind of like the deep throat source. I don't even know if I want to blow up his spot, but he started following me on Twitter and I just started reading his blog, and he talks about Holy Man Undercover. Like, and he's a good writer, I guess, because he makes it sound like this really tense studio battle of David A.R. White versus Pure Flix, not liking Holy Man Undercover and not having enough religious elements and all these
Really?
things. And really behind the scenes.
I've always been curious if he even wants to make the jump into secular Hollywood. Because a lot of times it feels like these are just like, some of these movies feel like they're just like camera tests to prove that he can act a certain way.
Yeah, what a sizzle reel.
Yeah. Even though I know he's made so much money just doing this, and like he says that the goal of his work is to spread the gospel, but part of me wonders if eventually that ambition will lead itself to being like, well, Chris Pratt stars in Guardians of the Galaxies and he can talk about how much he loves Jesus afterwards, so maybe I could. This is my pitch to Hollywood to cast David A.R. White in the next Marvel movie.
Yeah, I wonder what that would be like.
It would be smart.
Or for David A.R. White to make his own version of a Marvel movie.
Personally, I think this is headed, because like all the Pure Flix stuff gets bigger and bigger. They obviously make more and more money. Even they even have like a setup where you can donate money so that people can get free Pure Flix accounts.
Oh,
It's pretty crazy.
And we can't get universal health care in this country? Are you kidding me?
I'd like to see like a darker Bible band, kind of like the Dark Knight,
A grimdark
series.
Bible man. Yeah.
Post 9/11.
That would be awesome.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's $1 billion right there.
And a darker Gerbert as well.
Heath Ledger as Gerbert.
And just some other like pre-body swap, like interesting details about Me Again. They use this recurring motif of him and his fictional wife in the movie. By the way, his wife in the movie is named April. So he and his wife April as little kids, and they're saying to each other, they're having a cute little kid conversation about how they're going to get married when they're older, and they're about maybe age 8 in the film. So we're supposed to sort of understand that this relationship was predetermined from the fact that they were kids, that they're truly like meant to be.
I fell in love with my wife, April, when I was about 5 years old.
You're my fella, Richie, and when a girl meets a fella, they end up having tea and getting married. I want to be a spaceman and fly to the moon. We'll get married when you get back from the moon. I'll wait for you.
What do you think? He was just body swapped into one of those kids? Like it actually was.
That would be cool, because I mean the big illusion, the big piece of media they allude to in this film is Quantum Leap, which you overhear him listening to what's clearly a dub of, I think, David A.R. White's voice, pretending to do like a commercial for Quantum Leap in the background of one of the scenes.
I've tried everything. I don't understand why I haven't leapt yet. Just hang in there a little longer, Sam. I'm working on it. Quantum Leap will return after these messages.
So I thought it would have been more interesting had he jumped around in like time and space instead of just, like 4 people that he knew.
For the Quantum Leap, I wanted to talk about that because that was an interesting device in the film, was that, in Quantum Leap, Dean Stockwell is guiding him through everything, but you don't really have that in this film. You have Tommy Blaze, but David A.R. White has to explain to him first what's happening, and then he tries to guide him. And it's kind of hinted that that guy on TV who shows up in the jail cell is going to be the Dean Stockwell character that's going to tell him what's going on.
I know you. You're that guy from the TV commercial.
And I know you. You're the guy who's ready to throw it all away because you think life's unfair. Happiness is a decision you make.
Hey, that door is locked.
Of course it's locked. This is a jail.
But he doesn't show up until about 2/3 of the way through. So David's really on his own. Like, he has to, go through so much, figure it out, explain it to someone else, and then have them help him.
I think that Big Earl character who is
Big Earl.
Yeah, Big Earl, who's supposed to be like his Dean Stockwell, was probably supposed to have more scenes.
I don't think they could afford him, could they?
Maybe not. Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if they just did that just the way it was scheduled. They did that day first, and they just couldn't get him anymore.
Yeah. You see him in the green screen in the bloopers at the end. Too bad.
Yeah, I wonder if they tried to like fit him in, like he was somewhere else, and they're like, we can still make this work, and just couldn't.
So a big bulk of the plot of Me Again is him getting to actually inhabit the bodies of various people who sort of orbit him in his life. And, obviously a lot of the comedy and charm comes from seeing David A.R. White like wearing other people's clothes or, being thrust into these situations that would be, very unbecoming of a man such as himself. So maybe for the next portion of us talking about this film, we can just talk about the different characters that he gets to body swap with and talk about some things that happen or things, he learns. We don't have to go in order necessarily, but Julian, who's the first person we see him swap into?
So he wakes up, he dozes off in church, I guess, praying. Or I don't even know if he dozes off. He just prays and wishes. He wishes on a cross that he could live a new life. And then he opens the doors to the church after hearing a knock on the door. And he's engulfed in blinding white light. And he wakes up in satin sheets in a very tacky-looking Southern California rich person house. And he's awakened by Della Reese, our old friend from Touched by an Angel, who is his housekeeper, helper. He's inhabited the body of the meanest man on earth, his friend Tony Blaze's boss. And I forget what's the dude's name? God damn, I gotta write these fucking names down for these movies.
His name in the movie is Bastion.
Mr.
Ron
Bastion.
Gilbert.
Mr. Bastion, yes.
Yeah, so everybody is referring to him as Mr. Bastion. David A.R. White finally gets a look in the mirror, and he sees that he is Mr. Bastion, and he sees Tony and a limo waiting for him, and they're all calling him Mr. Bastion. He collapses on the ground because he hasn't had his heart medicine, and he tells Tony that it's him. It's David A.R. White. And Tony instantly believes him.
Something really weird is happening, Tony.
I know. I don't know what it is, but traffic's backed up for miles. Hey, Carl, take the side road. Stay off the highway.
Tony, look at me. What do you see?
Well, I see a very brilliant and successful restaurateur.
No. Who do you see?
Well, I see you, Mr. Bastion.
I'm rich!
Yeah, well, you're gonna be rich and dead if you don't take this pill. Rich Chaplin.
So yeah, that's sort of it. I don't really understand. A lot of these, it didn't really make it clear what exactly the lesson is. Because he does revisit this, jumping ahead a little bit. He does revisit all these people whose bodies he swapped with. But like this one, I didn't really understand the point of him revisiting it because he was only in his body for like 5 minutes.
It was just so he could help this rich guy out one more time. This guy was everything. The one thing he didn't have, eternal life. But I'm sure he does by the end of the credits.
Right.
Yeah. He made it seem like he was like, everybody hated him, but really it was only just like one guy who really expressed that he hated him. Other than that, he didn't really get that much of a glimpse into this old rich man's life, which I'm sure he was fine with. He's rich as fuck.
Yeah, the deleted scenes with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
The thing is with like any Christian movie though, you can only make a bad guy so bad.
Yeah.
Which I think is a mistake in Christian movies. I don't like we all live in the world. You can't hide it from us to a certain extent. So like having someone be like truly shitty is like not the worst idea.
No.
I mean, like would people really harp so much on like this part was offensive? I'm not watching this movie anymore.
They're picturing the Dove rating. Yeah.
We don't even see him outside of being swapped with David A.R. White, except for the one like 5-minute scene where all he says is like, "Oh, I gotta open my door myself now."
Yeah.
And that's the only time
meanest
we actually
man
see
in
this
Los
guy.
Angeles. What do I gotta open my door now?
He gets warped out of Bastion's body, and he ends up in the body of Chloe, who is a character in the movie, who's a model. Do we meet Chloe before the body swap?
Nope.
No, we
No.
don't. Okay. So
Just in the advertisements.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
He's-
Her commercial, Obnoxious for Men, I think it was called.
Obnoxious when subtlety isn't enough.
Right. It's like a cute parody of like a Calvin Klein perfume commercial. And she's advertising on TV a perfume called Obnoxious for Men.
I think it's a lot from her own, her actual biography of being a model in Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
Also trying to make it.
And notably, this is like the only time where he has like a specific feeling attached to a character, because I thought this would keep coming up after he dies of not having heart medication. And then he says when he wakes up in her body, "Oh, I'm so hungry," because we assume, because she's a model, that she's not eating enough, because that's how you keep your weight off.
Right.
As if that's the only way you could do that. But
yeah, and like, this scene, this body swap sequence is like a vehicle for a lot of the like body swap humor of this film. Like, this is the part where David A.R. just gets to go crazy because he's wearing freaking women's clothes. Okay, can you believe it? Okay.
Oh no, you didn't.
I know, right? It's just insane. And of course, the whole time he's wearing them in the film, he has to have this sort of like bewildered expression on. Like, I would never imagine me doing this.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You can't catch one stray frame where he's not making that expression.
Right.
It's
Right.
airtight.
If this were a secular body swap movie, there would at least be a couple moments in the montage where he's like really styling himself or into it.
Right.
You'd probably have like more range of emotions.
Right. But yeah, he puts on makeup to go to this model's photo shoot. And of course, because he's a man, he does it badly. He looks like a fucking clown. He gets there. Everyone at the photo shoot is really pissed, even though that's like models generally don't have to do their own makeup and hair when they get to a photo shoot. But, it's very funny. We get to see David A.R. doing the man in dress joke trope. So pretty cool.
And then he passes out from being malnourished and goes into the next body.
Well, I just want to say, like, this sequence is kind of where it started. I was starting to feel like everybody in this movie was being body swapped, and that they were all just like, I mean, this is my own little headcanon, if you will, for the film. But it really did start to unravel here in terms of, like, other people's motives and worldviews, where it kind of just seems like every person is sort of making up what they are supposed to say to just keep the world working, which like when the lady said that she's like yelling at David A.R. White to get his act together or get her act together, and like, can we do anything about her makeup, and like, how do we fix this? And then all of a sudden she just says, the client loves it, like, without any sort of without anything happening in between her being like furious with how it looks to loving this new heroin chic.
Tell me there is something you can do about her makeup.
I could blend it a bit.
Actually, the client likes this look. Heroin chic. Kind of a raw, postmodern nouveau. It's the latest thing in the enviro garbage toxic greenhouse thing.
Yeah, but he does have a motivation to keep things running, but you don't know why. He's like, I guess I'll do this. Like, I go to the model shoot and, or convince this family that I'm, enjoying this birthday.
Yeah, that was the scene where I really was like starting to feel in my head like everybody was just sort of like nobody really knew what they were supposed to be doing at any time.
Yeah.
Really makes you think, who among us is being body swapped?
Right.
It's just sort of, it's like when you go to a job and you don't really know what you're supposed to be doing. You're just playing the part of a person who knows what they're doing.
Well, who is the next person he swaps into? Is this Della Reese?
Yeah, I think this one really connects to the conflict we talked about. I think was recently brought up in the Wonder Woman 1984, where you're wondering what the person that his body is taking over, what she's missing, what's actually happening. And it's Della Reese. She's with her family. It's a nice moment. It's her birthday. Her family is lovingly looking at her and telling all these stories. And she just looks lost and confused because that's what David's feeling. And but he pulls it off. Like, he plays the part as the grandmother. He says a prayer, and everyone likes the prayer. And it's a really bizarre moment, and it makes me sad that Della Reese couldn't enjoy the birthday with her family. Instead, it had to be David's lesson.
Yeah.
Very ethically dubious movie, just across the spectrum. Like, he robs this old lady of probably her last birthday. And then,
it feels like it.
Then he like robs a teenager of his future by sending him into jail through his own actions. Which we'll get to in a minute.
And also, this could have blown the modeling gig for Andrea.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, just because you destroyed your own life doesn't mean you have to destroy everybody else's too.
Yes.
He killed the first guy.
Yeah, and the first guy died.
The Della Reese scene kind of reminded me of like an adventure or a role playing video game where you have like a conversation tree you have to choose from.
Yeah, like an FMV, like a point and click, like FMV. Yeah, because all the family members were like talking one by one and just looking directly at her and being like,
exactly.
Like, I always worried about you, Mom.
It felt like it was like a quick time event when you didn't pick the choice fast enough, so it just picks it for you because he's just sitting there and staring at them blankly, and they still like continue the conversation as
Plenty
if he's
of time
responding.
for you to choose. Yeah.
Julian, tell us about the goldfish swap.
Oh yeah, so the goldfish swap. He wakes up in a goldfish, and he's watching his own family. Oh, this has a really good line in it where he says, "Am I in heaven? Why is everything so wet?
Am I dead? This is heaven. Why is everything so wet?"
Which just those two sentences together is really awesome. So he's trapped and he's in the body of a goldfish. He's watching his family have dinner at Scantino's right next to the Popeyes in Eagle Rock off of Colorado Boulevard.
Very nice.
But he's watching them have dinner and seeing that his wife and kids interacting without him for the first time. Obviously, he couldn't have seen that any earlier. And he sees that his kids really do miss him. They're wondering when he's coming home, even though I feel like he's only been gone for like a couple hours at this rate. But he sees that what his like. I guess this is the first time where he kind of sees what his behavior is actually doing to the people around him. Because before his old body swap excursion, he is a man who really just hates his life and hates what his life has become. And it's not really registering with him that, it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy when you tell yourself that you hate your family and the life that you've chosen, and you are constantly telling your wife and kids that you wish everything was different and you wish that you could live a different life. That has a tendency to, perpetuate your sadness.
Yeah.
So now he's sort of, I guess, seeing that other people in his life have emotions and can react to the things that he's saying and doing.
Imagine how horrifying it would be that you're just suddenly transported and you don't know. He could be a goldfish for another 6 years. He doesn't know absolutely when the next transition is going to happen.
Right.
See, that would have been a cool movie. And that's kind of what like Quantum Leap is like. Because the whole point of this idea of switching lives is to gain a little bit of perspective through like having to live the experiences of another person, but he never really becomes the other person. He's just like still trapped in his own mindset and is still acting on his own beliefs and like his own history and his own like goals and desires. He never actually has to become another person to gain any sort of perspective on his life.
Yeah, and I think that the pathos would really come in with the longer he's in that role.
Yeah, just some. I'll quick go through the next sort of inconsequential swap, which is David A.R. White turns to a little baby. He's just a beautiful little baby. Yeah. He needs to be changed, and he needs to be fed and put to bed. He's a beautiful little baby. He takes on the role.
But he's not just any baby.
That's true. He is the baby of a couple that has come in for counseling at his church when he was like a super checked out pastor. In the beginning of the movie, we see him be like, listen, I don't have advice for you guys, but get it together because a divorce lawyer costs more than taking care of a baby. Bye. And sends them out of his office. And yeah, when he's a baby, he has the adult human brain perspective of being like, wow, these parents are really bad at taking care of me. I'm just a beautiful little baby. And I have to point out that this is I'm sorry, conceptually this is a very horny movie. Like if you look up David A.R. White /fiction, like there's that, you can, let's say you write David A.R. White forced infantilization /fiction or whatever. Let's say you write let's say you record half-hour long David A.R. White sissification bimbofication hypnosis videos. Like you don't have to, you can just watch Me Again and see him be a beautiful supermodel. And it's everything you could ever need. So, truly perfect package.
Incest too.
Yeah, actually, let's get into that. Who wants to talk about his brief foray into being his daughter's own boyfriend?
I mean, you say brief, but I feel like this is the most impactful.
Yeah.
And he does the most in this role than he does in any other.
Yeah. This was his longest time in another body. I'm pretty sure. It was like a whole day because it ends at night.
Want to tell us about it, Scott?
Yeah, he turns into his daughter's bad boyfriend. It's established very early in the movie that he drives an impractical car that you rev loudly and has no respect for him as her father. And he wakes up in his body and I forget when his mom comes in, but he has a weird interaction with his mom, who obviously has no control over him. He tells her that she needs to discipline him better.
Hey, you ever think about the way you raised me? That maybe you've been a little too lenient? When I get back, we should take some time to talk about proper discipline.
Which he's jumping. This again brings up the being in someone and really living their life for a longer period of time thing, because he's just jumping to conclusions about this kid just because of the 1 minute interaction he had with him earlier in the movie.
Yeah. And his takeaway is to yell at the mom for not you don't even know what's going on in her life.
Yeah. Where's his dad? He might be a piece of shit. We never see that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a goldfish. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He swapped and never came back. We don't know.
There's no guarantee.
An important fact that we learn about his own family through, like I said, being his daughter's boyfriend. They go on a date. He gets a call from his own daughter and is like, come over here quick, before my mom gets home. He goes over there. They take a ride. And they're riding in the car, and his daughter, whose name is, I want to say Briar, I think is her name.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool, Hillsong style name. So yeah, his daughter's named Briar. He's in the car with Briar, and, he doesn't know where they're going, but she does. And she's like, well, we're going to the doctor's office. It was your idea anyway. And if you watch the scene, you can't help but think, oh, wow, she's pregnant and she's going to get an abortion. That's just the first thing you think of, because there's all this talk. It seems very stern and secretive, and she's very distressed. Briar is very distressed. And it's oh, damn, this movie's actually getting kind of real. She's going to get an abortion. And, but David A.R. White inhabiting this teen boy, he's like, but to do what? Go to the doctor to do what? And she's like, don't play dumb. I'm going to get birth control pills. And it's car, him, screeching the car to a halt, pulling the side of the road. You're going to do what?
Really going to make me say it? Isn't it enough that I've agreed to do it?
Do what?
Birth control pills? Of all the... I can't believe your mother would faint if she knew...
In so much trouble right now. I can't... With Colin, of all people. Colin, me, with...
Young lady, you are grounded to the rapture!
It's just this, very... It's very shocking as an audience. member. I don't know. It's like not even the fact that like, okay, like maybe we can understand a reality. Well, you know, it's obvious that like David A.R. White and the movie are like opposed to the idea of like kids being sexually active at all, which, you know, I get, but still like the way they treat it is just like kids, like like a teen daughter will be like, oh no, I have to go on birth control. Like, how is this happening to me? Like it's just she's put in this like victimized situation for telling her doctor about birth control, which just seems like a misunderstanding of how like a teen girl, even a minor, might view her own sexuality.
Yeah, and it's really frustrating too because there are a number of reasons to go on birth control when you are a teenage girl.
Right.
I would say the only way for David to find out is to actually turn into his daughter, you know, then he'll understand.
Right.
Didn't happen though.
No.
Yeah, even just regulating your system better is like a huge advantage to it.
Sure.
Just in general. I didn't even have to body swap to figure that out.
I mean, this is the first time we start to see that the real lesson of this movie is that no matter who you are and no matter what you do, as long as you are deep down an older white man, your impulsive reaction to any situation will always be the correct one.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Even though the reason he's in this situation in the first place is because he's such a lame decision maker.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, you know, we're also treated to some humorous hijinks where like he, as his daughter's boyfriend, is like yelling at his like David A.R. White's wife in the movie, like yelling things like April, we're gonna have a talk about this, and it's like, I don't know, it's really funny that like his daughter's boyfriend has suddenly like fallen in love with mom. I genuinely laughed out loud at certain parts. I thought it was very clever.
I think this might have been the movie that he was writing, and then he couldn't flesh out the full thing, and so it just like built around this whole sequence, because this is the one where it's like most of the like situational comedy that comes with body swapping. It's where like all the humor is, if you can laugh at it, which I couldn't because I think it's disgusting, quite frankly.
Well, I laughed. I thought it was really funny when he sees his other daughter and is like, give daddy a hug, and she's like, oh, what's wrong with you? This was another missed opportunity though, because as they established with the first two body swaps, he can feel what they feel, but then all the rest he doesn't. So like even for like the baby, he should have been like, why am I tired and really alert at the same time and shitting myself? I can't control it.
Right.
Or like with being like this teenage boy harlot or whatever.
Yeah.
He should be like, I'm so horny, or like, I don't know. Like,
I'm so horny.
And we would be remiss not to mention that when he gets into his daughter's boyfriend's car, the music that's playing, he's very upset by. And he immediately pulls the CD out and throws it out on the ground, and it's a burned mix CD that says hardcore jams on it.
So what's the problem? No time for all of this talking.
What is this garbage they listen to?
Hardcore jams. This guy's a happy hardcore fan. He's been raving since 96. Love that. Yeah, and you know, this again, this is probably the most consequential swap in the film. It ends with this teenage boyfriend getting arrested by the cops, who conclude, you know, what he just needs is a night in county. They bring him to county jail. We see David A.R. White lounging in a prison cell, looking glum and saying, I guess this is rock bottom. But it's like actually not. It's someone else's rock bottom. There's no consequences for him. He's getting put into prison under completely someone else's like identity and like legal record. So it's actually not at all rock bottom. But this is where, and we referenced him a couple times, but this is where a character comes in who probably should have played more of a part in the movie, but just did not. And that is Big Earl, who we've been talking about. We've already referenced, but yeah, he gets a guardian angel character an hour into the movie, and that's really all we see him. Very strange.
Yeah. I guess we start to get a hint of what the messages the movie is trying to one of the many messages is like, because here's where he really starts to get like homesick for the life that he had, and like I guess the idea is that like just be grateful for what you have, because like you could be a woman or like an old person, in which case your life would be so much worse.
Or be in jail. He's literally just homesick for a home.
Yeah,
that would be much better than being in jail.
Right. Let's talk about his final body swap, and we'll get into the conclusion of the film. What happens here? Maybe you want to talk about it, Anthony?
So we're talking about his wife.
Yeah.
So he turns into his wife, who is separating from him, gave him the divorce papers. He kind of hangs out in the house as his wife and like has a slightly different relationship to his kids. The weirdest thing is when they're actually going to the courthouse. So it's him as his wife, and then suddenly he's faced with the other David A.R. White in the defense of the courthouse. So we have two David A.R. Whites.
Yes.
And he's basically making the decision for his wife of what they should. He's basically this fantasy of what he thinks his wife would want to do in this situation, and kind of acting it out to this other David A.R. White, who's just kind of moping and watching him. It's a very strange scene.
It is.
So the David that he is talking to is like the less informed David, or has that David seen what we've seen? Or is it like a David that's just off to the side?
There's a kind of throwaway part in the movie, and I forget where it is exactly. But of the two times I watched this, I only noticed it the one time. Tommy Blaze mentions that he has kind of still been his same depressing self the whole time at the same time.
Right.
So he is just uninformed schlub David.
Drooling.
Yeah.
a drooling vacant man.
Yeah.
Is just walking around like lobotomized, essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in Existence. Like he's in the video game, and his like catatonic like shell is just like there, and anyone can come fuck with him. But no, apparently he is like talking to people and has free will and is walking around the world. But yeah, the David's soul is stuck inside, many people, including a fish and a little baby.
So what is he saying in the court case is that his wife never made sense until it was him talking to himself?
Yes.
Damn.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my God, that kicks so much ass.
Fuck.
Oh, it's
Me
so
again.
Good. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, the premise.
You're finally making some sense.
Yeah, when you just like you tell yourself off, but like enabling all of your. I mean, I guess the reason this movie is fiction is because he's not like completely enabling himself through the body of someone else. He is actually giving advice that he needed to hear. But yeah, it is. If you're forced to reason with the logic of this movie, it is a really bewildering moment, and something you don't often see in the body swap genre. You're not normally able to confront the swappy character.
Yeah.
But in this film, you really are. You must confront the fact that he still exists, and they literally have a confrontation where he's like, oh yeah, and also as his wife, he decides, you know what, we're not getting a divorce. Like, you have to work on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then everything suddenly, all the logic of the movie suddenly does make sense, because he wakes up in the church house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's revealed that the whole thing was a dream.
It had only been 30 minutes since he called Tommy.
Yeah. So at least to the outside world, it was all just a dream.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now we don't have to worry about any like the movie making any logical sense, because it was just a wacky dream, a wacky vision given from God to teach David A.R. White a lesson about life, whatever that lesson is. Not exactly sure, but he immediately goes home and just ransacks his wife's art studio in the garage to create a playhouse for the children, which don't really understand how that's supposed to make his wife any happier. But he is reinvigorated with the manic energy of a man desperately clinging to control over his family. And everything works out for him.
Yeah, just building that playhouse was enough. Years of neglect. Oh, you built it. That's all I asked. Thanks. Great. I'm good.
Yeah, that's so great. He built one tree house and everybody forgets everything that he's ever done.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to, accept the consequences of his actions.
What's annoying about the treehouse though is that it's not like it's like he tried to have it both ways, where he wanted to have like a cute date night and kind of like a glamping tea, party with his wife, but then say it's also a fun playhouse for kids. But it's just a kind of draped table set. I don't think that's what they had in mind. I think they wanted to climb up on a ladder and on a tree.
Yes. That shared aesthetic between adult glamping and like whimsical childhood is like such like Christian design aesthetic though. It's like you can hear like the mandolin music with stomp claps and like glockenspiels in the background. It's like that's super mainstream Christian to me. It really gives me that. We don't have to get into everyone necessarily, but I did want to mention just some other like funny things he does after he wakes up and is invigorated. The funniest one to me of the bunch is he goes back and continues to give better advice to that couple who came to him with issues about their baby. And he basically gives them a lecture. He was like, so your problem is like you can't afford a baby? And they're like, yeah, it's hard. And he's like, it only costs $1 an hour to have a baby.
Oh my God. As I remember, the problem was about money, the cost of raising a child.
Yeah, that's right. Kids cost a fortune.
Actually, according to the government, the cost of raising a child from birth to 18 is $160,140. When you do the math, it comes out to about $24.24 a day. A little over $1 an hour.
You know what? I think we've heard enough.
But just wait a second. Let's just see what a dollar will get you. I mean, the question is whether or not it's worth it, right?
So funny, because it was like, $1 an hour until they're 18 years old. Scott, you said it was like putting a price on the baby's head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, but if the issue is like that they don't have any money at all, then I think that the cost of raising a child might be irrelevant to their situation.
Right. I didn't know where he was going with that. Was he going to be like, let's pray for it, and like, maybe we can find someone in the church to offer like volunteer babysitting services. I don't know, just like something cute like that to like to involve the church community, bring them in and alleviate the stress. But he was like, no, maybe you should just like earn more money because it only costs like $1 an hour to have a baby.
Instead of him being like, okay, I did the actual math. Here's the slides, a sheet of paper over. Is this financially worth it to you? Here's the breakdown. Things kids provide, how much it costs.
Yeah, like I don't want to do the math, but I think if I like incorporate my like rent and stuff like that, I'm sure it costs more than $1 an hour like just to be awake, like as myself. I don't know.
Yeah,
I really don't trust his logic on that.
He forgot that they're not just paying to raise a child, they're also paying for their own lives.
Before we wrap up this movie, any other like really important parts at the end or anything like that we should make sure we get to before we give our final thoughts and rating?
I would like to mention that he goes to Briar's boyfriend's place again after he's come back from his swap hell and puts him in handcuffs and shoves a sock that was right next to a stack of porn in his mouth and then tells him how it's going to be.
But it's also very weird that he's doing all this stuff after having a dream. Like he's just going around to strangers.
Oh yeah, right.
Like,
How can he be confident? Right. How can he be confident that like any of this happened? You can't just handcuff a teen boy and gag him in his bedroom.
Yeah. And he doesn't even know like the birthday party for Delarice happened in a dream, and the model's whole life was something he imagined.
Right.
Yet he somehow doxes these people and like sends them things that are supposed to turn their lives around. When like, for all he knows, that like model is a totally fine, well-adjusted human being, and they're just getting like a letter that says like, "You are beautiful."
As if getting an anonymous letter that tells you you're beautiful is gonna like help any woman's situation.
And sending an eyeglass chain to somebody he doesn't even know if they actually exist or not. Like that Della Reese's character's entire existence only happened in his brain.
Right.
I wonder if he ended up yelling at his daughter about the birth control thing, because like that also never actually happened.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He comes in and is just like, you slut. And she's like, Dad, what the fuck? Very bewildering yet charming and fun and lighthearted film. I think that Me Again has quite a way of defining the genre. It seems like harmless on its surface, but yeah, if you actually like stop and think about it for like more than a split second, which the movie does not necessarily invite you to do, it becomes sort of a nightmare, I think you could say.
I want to say, just as one last final little needle in the eye of the viewer, that the movie does end with a what do you call it? Another flashback to David A.R. White and his movie wife's childhood, where it's revealed that the angel Big Earl visited his wife as a child and told her that all of this would happen one day.
Yeah.
Just as one more insane little twist to this, that this whole experience was like predetermined by God.
Yeah.
That we're all just living at the whim of these cosmic forces.
Yeah, we're all just fish in God's aquarium, you could say.
Oh yeah, he also takes the fish home from the restaurant.
Never to be bothered. Yeah. I just had one last thought, but it goes all the way to the very beginning of the film, if we could
please
do that, because I think about this opening monologue a lot when I was editing the short, and there's this line that's like seems to be hinting at so much like just dissatisfaction that he just can't bear to say in a clear way. It's the I don't regret marrying April. I just didn't know what that life would look like.
I don't regret marrying April and having a family. I regret not really understanding what that life would look like.
It's like a very non-committal thing that like is like so open-ended, where it's like, what is he trying to say? You know, what that life would look like. So it would be something that you would regret. It just seems to be something that really sticks with me, and I think about it a lot.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah, you're right. It refuses to take a stand. It like does and it doesn't. It like hints at great dissatisfaction, but it's still like, it's just like, it's like a Buddhist like koan or whatever, that however you pronounce that word, Koan, where it's like a phrase that just like reverberates around in your brain and like makes you ponder like existential meaning, but it's like not really actually present in the words itself.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things where people didn't want to follow up on it, and they're just kind of let it go, you know, and then they're just kind of, you know, who knows what's behind that? Something deeper, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd actually say that's a pretty good like microcosm, like summary of the feeling that Me Again gives when we watch it. Yeah, Me Again, the Christian body swap movie from 2012, starring David A.R. White. What do we think, everyone? What is our final thoughts on the film? And then I think we should give it the official Boys Bible Study rating. You know, to me, like, Me Again was like, it has this remarkable way of like washing over you like a Hallmark film, but then all of a sudden you're being confronted with, like him just like handcuffing and gagging a teen boy, or, you know, like being like, I'm a model, I'm underweight, so I just gotta like feed myself with food, and he's just like pushing food into his face like while wearing a dress, like very perverse. A very perverse movie by
I was
a
so
sick man.
hoping that they were going to hook up, him and his friend, when he was the model.
Yes. Oh God, that would have been so great. Yeah, to be like, hey, you know, we've all thought about it, right? You know, Yeah, I got to give this film, 10 out of 10 hardcore jams. Like, if you're if you're a new metal teen, if this film would have taken place in 2021, that hardcore jam CD would have been filled with, sad boy emo rap anthems. But this being the 2010s, pure jock jams, baby. So 10 out of 10 hardcore jams. What'd you guys think?
I really enjoyed it. It was so wacky. It was the wackiest I've ever seen David A.R. White. Really showing his comedic chops in this film. I do feel like this was probably written during the first period of turmoil in his real life marriage, because it kind of feels like a movie that. Wait, who wrote? He didn't write it. Tony Blaze wrote it.
Tommy Blaze wrote it, yeah.
Tommy Blaze wrote it. I've been calling him Tony this
That's
whole
because
time.
his name in the movie's Tony. So it's very
perfect.
different.
So I got it right.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
For once, I got a character's name right.
Go on.
Okay, well, my theory about the movie has been completely trashed. I'll give it 3 bottles of Obnoxious for Men Way Up.
Well, I feel like I'm a little biased because I love body swap movies. And I love this one too. Well, with exception to Holiday Wishes and vice versa. Neither of those are very good, but you should still watch them. Where was I? Oh yeah. So what I'm going to give this incredible movie is a movie or two recommended by Tommy Blaze himself. I don't know what he was bringing to David to watch, but we never really found out.
He was probably bringing another David A.R. White movie.
I did see a copy of G.I. Jane. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Cool.
G.I. Jane
Yeah.
film? That's great.
Yeah, and that huge stack of DVDs on his desk that he just swept off with his arm to make a point. I was like, Jesus, dude. Anyway, great movie. Great movie. I'll upgrade it even to all of Tommy Blaze's collection of DVDs out of all of Tommy Blaze's collection of DVDs. That's how much I liked this movie.
All right. I'll go and this was definitely, a common genre, or is the prodigal son story. And I guess this kind of fits in with that in a weird kind of a kaleidoscopic prodigal son tale. But it's this kind of an evangelical fantasy where one gets to be reborn several times in a kind of a speed run manner. I think I'd give this 5 scarves.
Beautiful.
Yeah, if I learned anything about the nature of woman from this film, it's that every woman wears a scarf. Like, I think that can be completely agreed upon. Regardless of your backgrounds, regardless of your religion, your background, I think we can all agree that women be wearing scarves.
Yep.
Yeah. Anthony, before we go, I want to say your research and work on the life of David A.R. White proved invaluable to examining this film. You literally taught me a lot about this guy who I've spent many hours with him, but I feel like I only scratched the surface. So thank you for that. Also, we're going to link Pure Flix and Chill in the episode description. Any Boys Bible Study listener, please watch it. It's you can watch it for free on Vimeo. It's a really well done and structured biography of David A.R. White as told through an edit compilation of all of his movies. So you not only learn about him, you also get like a great like preview of like almost every movie he's been in. And I think anyone who likes our show would really like it. But also, what are you working on right now or recently? And is there anything that you'd like to promo before we say goodbye?
Oh, well, basically the feature documentary, my first feature documentary, it's called Cane Fire. I've been touring it at festivals over the past year, and it should be, there's another festival date coming up. I can't announce publicly yet, but it's going to be happening in March, and it'll be available virtually late March to watch. But you can watch the trailer on my website, and
Amazing. Congratulations on that. Thank you again so much for sharing your knowledge with us on this. It was really enlightening for us. On the Boys Bible Study side of things, let me say that if you enjoy our free episodes, don't hesitate to check out patreon.com/Boys Bible Study. We do at least 2 bonus episodes every month, and you can unlock those future episodes and our entire back catalog of exclusive bonus episodes if you sign up for $5 a month or higher at patreon.com/Boys Bible Study. Also, very special shout out to our patrons at the $20 tier. If you sign up at the Patron Saint tier, you get a shout out on all of our episodes. Thank you, as always, Nicole, Marissa, Russell, and Jeff Bezos. Our outro music is Oh My God by pop singer Mary. Check out Mary on Bandcamp and Spotify. On behalf of myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, our special guest today, Anthony Banua-Simon, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day you take